Humans of the cardboard, welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today I've got another updated deck profile for you. This is post Photon Hypernova. Really exciting set, I think, partially because the set has some really cool stuff for certain rogue decks, certain competitive relevant decks, as well as a ban list came out right around the time this set dropped. So a lot of really exciting new stuff coming to the game. Exciting to see how the format's going to change. And I think Labyrinth is one of the 5 best decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! Now maybe it's closer to 3, 4, 5 than it is 1, 2, 3, but I do think it is one of the top decks to consider. So today I'm showing you my updated deck profile of where I think Labyrinth is at and how I'm going to at least give you my initial build into the early stages of the format. But yeah, a lot of cool stuff here, so let's jump into it. Starting off here, of course, with our monster lineup, the main engine here, triple copies of Ariana, 1 copy of Kuklak. These are your small Labyrinth monsters, and then from there we move to triple Lady Labyrinth of Silver Castle and 1 copy of Lovely Labyrinth of the Silver Castle. I think this is a fairly standard condensed lineup. I've seen the OCG play some of the Chandraglier and Stovey, and I think those cards are fine. I think I will 100% play at least 1 Stovey next format when Cyberstorm Access comes out, because that card plus either of the 8s allows you to make Chaos Angel, and that card is so cracked in this deck. But until then, I don't think they're fully necessary. We're not in a super tier format anymore because of the ban list, so I'm not expecting to need to play the Ishizu Shufflers in the deck as pitch fodder. And so I think because of that, like, this deck is fine just rolling with this lineup. So yeah, Ariana's the main starter, Kuklak allowing you to fire off traps the turn they are set. Lady being like an insane resource tool to be able to get you more and more traps over the course of turns, and just being a big body that threatens the board and is hard to out. And then Silver Castle, she's the biggest brick. You hate her. Anytime you draw her, you are pissed. At least I am. Huge brick, but as long as she gets on the field, she is so good. Last format, when like she was terrible, I mean terrible in the tier matchup, now there's no matchup that feels like that terrible for her. So I actually like her so much more going into the new format. So as a 1-of, it's fine. She's easily sideable out. You just gotta hope you don't draw her the hard way. From here, 2 board breakers, 2 lava golems in the main. I like this a lot. The only normal summon the deck has is the triple Ariana as your main monster starter, but other than that, like, Lava Golem is live to just clear opponent's stuff. And going second with the trap deck, I mean, we all know that feeling. Like, Lava Golem set 4 pass just feels like an auto win in a lot of scenarios, especially when we play stuff like Compulse to just get this card loaded back in hand. So good synergy, still a fiend, you know, can potentially be a win condition in time. A lot of good attributes to this card for sure. Only monster hand trap I play, triple copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. Even though this card is a little bit lower ceiling, lower power in the format, I actually think in the next format it could be pretty solid. I think about Kashtira and being able to negate the spell that summons a Kashtira monster from deck can be a huge choke point for the combo, at least. Not necessarily to like make it so that their turn is completely done, but at least cut them off of going full combo in a lot of different scenarios. So pretty good for that. And then even just other decks, if you play Sprite, like, Sprite is just so severely hindered not really having a follow-up play in Elf anymore, that like hitting them with an Ash on like Gigantic usually cuts them off of making like a really scary board in any way. So this card really feels just much more balanced this format, instead of just underpowered versus tier. You hit it, if all you draw is Ash Blossom versus tier last format, it just felt like you might as well just have no hand traps. But here, really nice. From there, I move to the spells. I don't play many. I just play triple Prosperity and 1 Lab. So the consistency card here is Prosperity, obviously. Some people love Extravagance, but I go with Prosperity. Here's the argument, because this is definitely a point of diversity with the player base in terms of deciding which one you like more. I think game 1 Extravagance, there's a total argument that Extravagance is going to be better a lot of game 1s. But I'm trying to win matches, not game 1s, and I think Prosperity is going to lead to more wins overall in the long haul, especially post-side. If we're going first, we're searching Judgment, we're searching a pointer so that we're not losing to blowouts. If we're going second, we're finding stuff like Lava Golem to be able to break a board going second. So I think the overall consistency with this card, especially post side, is way more worth than Extravagance's +1 overall. So I choose for this. Obviously, if you're a budget player, Extravagance is totally more than fine, and that's a great budget way to kind of make some discounts in the deck to be able to still be able to play it at a strong level. I just think if you're trying to absolutely optimize the list, I go Prosperity. And then the field spell, this card is fine. You play it as a one-of when you kind of have access to most of everything else. You can still access this card because it makes all of your trap cards also Dridents at the same time, which is very strong. And then also gives you the potential to summon some of your Labyrinth monsters back from the grave, which can definitely come up as well. But that's it for the spells and monsters. Not a ton of them. I think it's 13 monsters plus 4 spells. So honestly, like 17 between those. Not bad for a trap deck. Let's move to the traps though. For the engine cards, triple Welcome Labyrinth and triple of the new card. Pretty much the whole reason to kind of be excited for the deck right now, other than like the format getting weaker, is big Welcome Labyrinth. This card is crazy. It summons any Labyrinth monster from deck, then bounces any monster you control back to the hand, which does count as removing a monster by a trap effect. So that triggers all of your Labyrinth cards pretty much, which is very, very good for like just supporting the rest of the engine. And then also on a later turn from grave, it can banish itself and then to target a fiend monster you control, or as long as you have a level 8 or higher fiend on the field, you can target any card on the field. So on later turns, this can just be compulse as long as you have one of your boss monsters up. Otherwise, it can allow you to dodge certain things anyway in good scenarios and work from there. Just phenomenal engine cards that allow you to like keep grinding turn after turn over and over again. Really, really good. From there, move to some of the removal traps. Triple Compulse is the standard one. This one I think is just the most consistent overall, even though it's lower powered than a lot of the other ones. I think just the fact that it's doing what it wants to do every time, it feels like, or something every time, just feels really good. And also the Compulse factor has synergy with Lava Golem, has synergy with some of your lab monsters where you can like bounce a lady already established back to the hand if your opponent's resolving something like an evenly, so you have less cards on the board to be able to keep some better things. And then lady can still summon herself if she wasn't already summoned that turn. So there's some really good workaround with this card. It's just so flexible. It's so good. I thought about cutting this at first, and I've come back on that. I definitely like it in the deck, even if we still have Big Welcome, which also kind of functions as a compulse at certain points. Double Punishment. This card I like a lot. This one is a hard once per turn though, so I decided to play it at 2. Also, we'll throw IDP down as the last like multi, more than one copy removal trap. Punishment's amazing. The extra, the extra bonus of punishment is so good. The fact that it's not just a pop, but it's a pop and then something else is so good. And I think now that, especially now that tier is severely crutched by the ban list, it doesn't feel like there's a single matchup where punishment is god-awful in. I feel like it's just going to be solid versus almost everything, and I'm excited for that. And then Prison. This card versus specific matchups decimates them. It's still decent in other matchups. It's just a really phenomenal card. I want it. You have to at least play this at 1. I think you can't afford to not play this at all, because if you do play a matchup where it's good, and even just having it at 1 for Lady to fetch is too good not to have access to. So there you go. That's the multi-copied removal traps. From there, the only other 3 I play for traps is Infinite Impermanence. This card plus 2 Ash, 3 Ash plus 2 Lava Golem gives us our hard going second cards. But to be honest, when you just have a trap deck full of just like removal traps, setting 3 or 4 of those into a board is going to provide a whole lot of threat to a board anyway. So I think inherently trap decks like this one can break boards anyway. But these cards just help slow our opponent's board down, especially in a format where I feel like 1 Ash or 1 Imperm can actually do a good bit. It's got to feel worth it. Versus tier at full power, it didn't feel worth it all the time, but now I feel like these are worth it to a large degree in like being able to keep your opponent's end board ceiling much lower than it was otherwise. Other than that, I feel like just a negator pairs really nicely with what other traps we play, because everything's so removal based that having a negation feels really nice. I know it's only on field, so I'd still consider the possibility of playing something like a strike or a judgment. I don't love the idea of judgment in the main, it's just not that good going second, but you know, definitely a weakness sometimes where all you have is removal, but your opponent's still able to resolve certain cards like branded fusion into a boss monster that then, even if you have removal for it, it's going to be able to at least take something with it. It feels like you're kind of losing out on those interactions a lot of the time. But overall, you know, it is what it is. And I think the deck handles its situations pretty well. Just plus is so hard that as long as you're still able to do some stuff, you're fine. Then a bunch of one-offs. So these are one-offs that are all searchable off of Lady Labyrinth. And so because of that, I want to play them because I feel like there could be opportunities for all of these cards to come up, but I just feel like they're not so openly applicable to every single matchup in the format that I'd actually want to play them at multiples. So you have Overroot. This is a card I played at multiples last format because of tier, because it was able to like remove a card from grave while also sending something on field. So it was really good at like stopping tier names from resolving while also you know, sending like a field spell on field to grave to kind of take that value from them. But it really depends. So I think there could just be matchups where they're kind of graveyard based. So that's where I look for Overroot, because it can also be graveyard interruption, whereas everything else is just remove them from the field. So that's really nice flexibly. Get Out. It's pretty much compulse, but hits 2 monsters instead of 1, but it has to target extra deck monsters. So again, depending on the matchup, this could be completely dead or it could be a complete powerhouse. So because of that inconsistency matchup to matchup, I think it's a perfect one of in the deck to kind of test out. I think about stuff like Kashtira. If I can get this set, this card is just bouncing 2 of their end board pieces and clearing them by itself. They don't end on negation. So this card I think is really good versus Kashtira. I think it's good versus a couple of other matchups as well, but like Branded, they don't end on negates either. So being able to like bounce 2 of their fusions so that they're not floating, really, really nice. Karma Cannon. This card has a couple of other applications to it. This one doesn't technically remove monsters via card effect like the last 2 do, so it doesn't trigger our Labyrinth effects, but it does have some really nice applications. It outs tower monsters. Literally this week when I was playing this in Ninjas, it won me a duel versus Virtual World that just made Mathmech Final Sigma in the EMZ. That was clutch. As well as being able to help you handle monsters that have really good protection. Stuff this outs like Avermax. This, if Dragoon doesn't have a negate or you already baited the negate, this flips Dragoons that you can handle it from there. Just a bunch of stuff like that. Just being able to handle annoying monsters and just large amounts of monsters, you know, in general, all in one fell swoop with this card is really nice. And so the one-of is cool. There's certain matchups where it's really good in, there's certain matchups where it's just okay in. And so I think a one-of is good. D-Barrier. This is your hard-going first card. If you're playing against something like Sword Soul, we're calling Synchro. If we're playing Branded, we're calling Fusion, but we're waiting until they activate Branded Fusion, pretty much. We're going to bait that out and force them to waste the resources. But yeah, still a really crazy card. Nonetheless, I don't think it's good enough in every matchup to play it in multiples, but as a one-of, where you could potentially do the coup clock play to set this up and get it ready, turn 1 is insane, so I definitely want to play it at least at 1. And then Trap Trick. I love this card in this deck as a one-of. I feel like there can be a lot of scenarios where this is kind of becomes a forgiving piece to anyone who's maybe doesn't feel as confident in certain scenarios, as confident in the deck right now, or it's just kind of a forgiving card. If you're in a somewhat simplified board state and you don't maybe know the matchup you're playing against as well, you can grab this card off of Lady instead of any of your actual 3 of traps or 2 of traps. And so now this card can be a starter like Welcome, a starter like Big Welcome, or it can be Compulse, or it can be Punishment, or it can be Ice Dragon's Prison. It can just be so many different tools in your deck, whatever you end up needing, but you don't have to choose right then and there. You get to kind of put it off and wait to see what your opponent has to then fire it later. It's really, really nice. I definitely recommend playing 1 Trap Trick. And then the final card in the deck, 2 copies of Goes in Match. I think this works pretty well in the deck. I almost put Bestial still in the deck, even though we're out of like heavy tier format, because I still think this works pretty well in the format. This decimates Kashtira, decimates Sprite. It's even pretty good versus Flu if Flu's still good. Maybe Despia kind of punishes this because so much of their deck is dark, but I do know a couple of their extra monsters I think are light actually, so it does mess with some stuff, but you know, it's not perfect, but it helps. And I do think versus enough matchups it's worth maining, but I'm also not playing 3 of it, so I'm not going so full on in on it that we're getting punished. All right, moving into the extra deck. That's 40 in the main, by the way. I think there's one thing I want to address too. I'm not playing Temple of the Kings. I thought about it as a one of in the deck. I wouldn't play it at more than one, I think. It's a really cool card. It's pretty much just a continuous spell that says, like, once per turn, you can activate a trap the turn it's set. That's really nice to be able to just speed up your engine. Every time you set off of Lady Labyrinth, it's now live. Every time you set off, I guess it's mainly Lady, but even just hard draw a trap and set it, you can activate that turn. So it really speeds up the deck. It really powers up the deck over the course of a lot of turns. And if you only play it at one, if you see it cool, you play enough traps, well, you'll probably guaranteed see some traps with it. But, you know, that's just a really nice tool for sure. All right, moving into the extra deck. Link monsters, Muckracker from the Underworld, Dark the Dark Charmer, Unicorn, Underworld Goddess. So Muckracker's cool, helps you like reborn Ariana on later turns, helps you reborn Lady Labyrinth or even Lovely Labyrinth at times. So it's a cool card. It comes with a little bit more now because you would have been terrified to use it with like Bestials and Ashizu Shufflers everywhere, but in a format where those aren't going to be quite as popular, this card just feels a lot less scary to fire off. Dark the Dark Charmer, just cool for taking opponent's dark monsters. The most common attribute in the game. This deck plays a bunch of darks, easy. Unicorn, just cool to make on later turns just to remove stuff for sure. If you just have an excess of bodies, but you need a removal, this is nice. Especially for stuff like Despia, being able to return their stuff to the extra deck is like the only way you keep them from floating. And then Underworld Goddess, other than the Karma Cannon, this is the only other out to like tower monsters in the deck. And if anybody's played trap decks consistently, you know most trap decks just all lose to like towers decks. So being able to have some kind of out to those that you can potentially aim for is really nice. Exceeds, 1 Baguska. It's a fiend. You could still make it under Welcome Labyrinth. King Darius, King Tell, and then King Deuce Machinex here rounding out the Exceeds. Oh, I'm sorry, and Zeus. So yeah, Baguska's powerful, obviously, and 2 Arianas on the field can make it, even if you're under Welcome Labyrinth, so that's cool. This package has always been really powerful. It's so much easier to set this up if you play Ariane, but I don't feel like Ariane actually like makes your deck better. I just don't feel like you're winning duels because of Ariane. It's just there. In fact, I feel like you're losing more duels because like getting hand trapped on Ariane is just like a hard neg one, of which is tough. So yeah, and then but if you can get here, obviously it's strong, but you need 2 Arianas on field, and then Zeus. Potentially you could set this up with these monsters. There's also potential to play stuff like Mind Control and or even like thrust into tactics in the side to be able to like take a Kashtira monster, Exceed monster, then attack with it, and then make Zeus, and then wipe the rest of their board. There's definitely some potential there for sure. That's pretty powerful. So I like this card. You can make it yourself on Baguska, or you can make it on top of Deuce Machinex, or take an opponent's monster. If you play the right side deck cards for it, it's pretty good. And then the final cards are just punishment targets. 2 Intis, 1 Bucephalus, plus the Garura. So if you don't know, when he's sent, he can send any tri-type, Wing Beast, Beast Warrior, or Beast. So you send him, then you send this. This allows you to still pop anything 35 or lower and draw a card, which is so huge. You know, it's obviously a punishment target, Garura, but because its attack is so low, there were a lot of scenarios where you just literally it didn't function the way you wanted it to. But now, because of Bucephalus, this card is so much better as a punishment target. It's awesome. 1 Aggregator, this is to negate something instead of popping something like Intis. Overall, Intis is going to be better most of the time, but there are specific scenarios where Aggregator can save your Heine. And then Cyber and Dragon, this is just in case something is bigger than 35, you'll still be able to pop it with this. Something like geez, what's his name? Access code talker. Geez, that only is made with like a link 2, so it's only 43. Just weird scenarios like that, or anything just bigger than 35 in general that this card can kind of save your keister on. Could be clutch, so you might as well play it. But yeah, that's pretty much it. This is a really cool deck. I truly believe this is like top 5 deck, and you guys usually don't see me make profiles on decks that are considered to be a top 5 deck in the format, but this is a deck I was looking at well before Photon Hypernova, and then once we got the new trap card revealed for Hypernova, I was like, wow, this deck gets so much better because of this. This card helps so much with consistency, your ability to get more interruptions established over the course of time. It's another trap that gets removal, so it triggers all your other cards. It's really, really good. So yeah, the deck's solid. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts down below. This is just my first iteration going into the new format, so I'm definitely open to any suggestions on adjustments to the build we might be considering. So please let me know your thoughts down below. But I'm out of here for today. Thank you so much for watching as always. Subscribe if you haven't yet and you want to see more stuff from your boy down the line. I've got a couple more deck profiles coming, at least 2 more, if not more than that for Hypernova, and then we'll see after that. But very excited. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.